As you know, Central Park is an oasis for so many that live here in New York City, and now it's going to be a place where people are brought hoping not to die.
A sea of people amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Hundreds and thousands of migrants desperate to reach their homes in rural India.
Today is March 30th.
We've got some interesting statistics today. We have 772,000 cases, 37,000 deaths, but we seem to be having a pretty significant downtick in deaths. Let's first start with the USA here. Basically on March 28th, I'm showing 525 deaths, and then March 29th, just 363 deaths. So, we've been expecting this exponential growth, and of course, this doesn't mean that we're not still on the same track. We had one other day like this, a week or so back where we were significantly down from the previous day. But this just looks like a really significant drop. Italy, on March 28th, we had 889 deaths, and then on the 29th yesterday, 756. It's just weird. Why do we have a dip on a Sunday?
So let me talk about my mental thoughts on this virus, because I keep changing between thinking this really isn't that bad and it's just going to be a little bit worse than the flu. Maybe it's 10 times as bad as the flu, but really that doesn't seem all that dangerous. It doesn't seem like we should shut down the world for it. And then other days I feel like this is going to be the end of the world. We're going to have millions, maybe tens of millions of people around the world who die. And I've watched all the videos online. I watch the news every day to some degree, although I am watching it less and less now. And I see all the epidemiologists and all the statisticians and everybody on YouTube with all their models. And I feel like for the last 2 weeks, we keep hearing that 1 to 2 million people will die in America. 1 to 2 million people is the number everyone keeps saying. If it's 1% and everybody got it, that would be 3 million people in the United States, right? There's 300 million people.
People weren't saying that would happen. They were just saying that could happen.
I mean, there was an article I read like a week ago where the guy was like, if we decrease the curve, best case scenario, we lose 1 million people. And if we don't do that, we do nothing.
I don't recall seeing that.
If we do nothing, we will lose 2 million people, right? Like He started with, if we do nothing, 2 million people are going to die, and that's worse than the Civil War, that's worse than the Holocaust. Like, he had all of these numbers, right?
Okay.
You don't remember me talking about this?
I don't remember.
And he was like, if we quarantine and just get the curve to like decrease, we're going to half that number. But having that number is still 1 million people dead.
Yep.
And I feel like I have still heard that narrative up until like Friday.
Now, even with those restrictions in place, health officials fear the U.S. could face 200,000 deaths from the virus. And without precautionary measures, that number could jump into the millions.
And maybe Trump has even said something in the news about this. We're hoping to keep it below 100,000. Mm-hmm. A week ago, we were at 1 or 2 million people, and now suddenly 100,000 people. That is that's a change of 10x. I feel like even though we're ramping into the worst phase of this in the United States, I'm starting to feel like this isn't going to be that bad. They're already talking about 100,000 people dying as opposed to 1 or 2 million. That's a huge difference. Right now, on this particular day, I'm falling on the other side of the fence of this isn't the end of the world from a health standpoint. I still think economically it could be. But it just feels like now you're telling me that, yesterday the curve dropped a little bit, or we had a day with a lot less reported cases. I don't know.
So you're saying it's cool for me to do jujitsu with our neighbor?
I don't know about that.
Oh, that's too risky.
I mean, I'm still looking out for myself.
So there actually was a jujitsu tournament yesterday, and it was so weird. It was on UFC Fight Pass.
And we had the right to have 8 people in the room, okay? Real broad stroke, fast ordinance for where we're at. But we had the right to have 8 people. We go, okay. But that went from 250 people to 50 people to 10 people, and it dropped to 8 people. So for all we know, this is going to change again. And we did the setup 4 days ago. So we go, okay, 4 people in the room. We're going to have 4 people in the room. Even though the rule says 8 right now, we're going to make it 4. So you got to have a doctor, you got to have a referee, and then you got to have the 2 athletes. Boom, 4. Every camera shot had to be set up. It was all on remote, operated from a truck 80 feet away, outside in a separate building. I'm the only commentator of a show. I'm in a separate building, catching it by feet on headlight. Look, it was a really great event. I will admit it was weird.
So do you feel like going through that process, like, did they scam the system? Or did they actually produce this event with everyone being separated and it was like a healthy way to do it?
Yeah, he pulled it off. But
Because you still have like, it's kind of like the model I talked about yesterday. You have like all these groups of 8 people, but then one person is constantly coming in to fight, and then I assume going back to the group.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Maybe it
so
wasn't
insane. Well, normally after a fight, you'd have the announcer come in and interview the winner and maybe interview the loser and everything. None of that.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis ordering a travel checkpoint, backing up traffic for miles along I-95 this weekend. It is a travel checkpoint in the U.S. unlike anything most Americans have ever seen before. Drivers can expect to answer questions from Department of Health and transportation officials about where they've been traveling to and from and where they're going, all under an executive order from the governor to deter Louisiana travelers from coming to Florida.
Should we,
Oh, you've been itching to read some of these comments.
how did you know that's what I was going to?
Because I see that smirk on your face.
So I've been reading, I just opened up the video from yesterday.
Oh, you just did, huh?
I've been busy all day. I've been watching
yeah,
videos.
It's weird
and,
because last night we were getting screenshots shared around of people's comments.
I saw the first 100 views,
Oh, okay.
and then I went to bed.
Oh, interesting.
These videos come out late. I can't stay up late.
Yeah.
Just read a few of these. I like
Okay,
this one.
Go ahead.
I'm on Team Patrick. Lee won't be laughing when he's on the mat touching some dude's sweaty Corona. This is my favorite one. Tomorrow, Lee will say, yeah, so I was a little bored and I decided to wrestle with a bat because statistically there are billions of bats, so it's unlikely anything will happen. Patrick, you're wrestling with bats now? Lee, oh, Patrick, in a couple of years, when you're on your deathbed, you'll laugh at how crazy you are today. I don't know why wrestling with bats made me laugh.
Uh-huh.
And then this guy says, this series is hilarious. There's Paranoid Patrick versus Careless Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy, I love this guy because he actually has his avatar is like a picture of you.
I was wondering if that was a picture of me.
It is, and if you click on his profile, it leads to like one video of you. I don't even know, you're like looking at your crotch or something. It's weird. But
What?
he's like, these talks really have made you guys more likable. Always been a fan of Patrick. In the case of Lee, he does come across as a jerk, but listening to him talk unscripted, I think he actually might have a big heart.
I don't. You're wrong.
I don't know. There's some really golden comments in some of these videos, but just wanted to share those two.
Thank
My
you.
favorite
Thank
one
you.
was one I sent you last night where somebody said, Patrick is the man I wish my husband was. But Lee is the jerk that my husband actually is. And I was like, that one needs to be framed and just put on the wall somewhere.
Yeah, you need to frame that, and then when Kristen is tired of your shit, and she's like, I don't want to hear about your stupid ass conspiracy theories and you freaking out and having anxiety attacks about stuff that doesn't exist, you can just point to this YouTuber and be like, she would love me, why don't you? And it'll make you...
Maybe that's what I'll do. I need a frame, photo frame, and it'll just say Patrick, and then it'll be like...
Maybe I'll give that to you for Christmas this year. Something that has felt very strange today. It feels like there's almost no news today. I am on YouTube for hours a day. I'm on all the news channels. I'm always looking for video clips to screen capture and to put in this video and to have things to talk about. And there has just been nothing to talk about. It's like no real new news.
Let me go to what's on CNN.
It's just nothing that big.
Italy will extend its lockdown to mid-April.
Yeah, it's like they haven't done that already. Like things like that, you just kind of expect.
Second headline, stop wearing masks if you're not sick, World Health Organization reiterates.
There you go.
I do not agree with what they're saying.
And then the stock market is going up today. I mean, as I'm looking at this, I guess it just closed. And 3.35% up on the S&P.
Yeah, those reverse index ETFs that I bought, which I think you bought on Friday.
I did too, yeah.
I've lost 30% of my money in that. So I don't know what to do because these things kind of eat away at themselves pretty quickly.
Yep.
And I feel like the market will be down in like a month or 2, 3 months. Like I don't see this getting better.
Yep.
But at the moment, it keeps ticking up, and I'm thinking, how long can I hold on to this ETF?
It's freaking my mind out every day, and I'm kind of like you, going back and forth between thinking like this is super serious and this isn't really serious at all. And I think most emergency situations where people are freaking out, in hindsight, we look back and go, like we overreacted a little bit. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the craziest things ever was 9/11. When you go back and look at what that was like in Manhattan when those towers fell down and people are running away,
Yeah.
that's some of the craziest footage I've ever seen in my life. But even looking back at that, for years afterwards, we were so worried about other terrorist attacks and everything, and nothing ever ended up happening. You know, we got ourselves all worked up, and I don't know if like there wouldn't have been other attacks, or we did a good job of stopping them or whatever. But people for years were talking about like the next attack is coming, and then it never really came. But I keep thinking from an economic standpoint, is it possible that we could just kind of get over this in the next month or two and just we all go back to work and nothing happens? It seems so unlikely. It's like I go back and forth 100 times a day between thinking, now's the time I need to put my money in, or are you insane? The economic crash hasn't even begun yet.
There's only one thing that can stop this economy from tumbling into a coronavirus-induced depression, and that is science. We need a cure or a vaccine.
Well, this was a debate that we were having earlier today when I saw you, and you were just saying like, you seem to want to be able to buy the dip in the stock market, but then you've also shown some interest in buying like real estate.
Yeah.
If real estate dips, and there's people that battle this all the time. What is better, to have stocks as your main investment strategy, or to have real estate as your main investment strategy? And I've always heard everyone who has money buys real estate. That's what I've always heard my whole life. But I only have one house, and that house at times is a pain in the butt. Like I have an old historic house in downtown Charleston, and you know, I'm trying to rent it out, and it's like there's always issues. The roof leaks, or there's termites somewhere, or you know, the AC bill's crazy because it's not insulated well. Like having a house is just a pain in the butt. But I can't imagine leveraging all this money to try to buy more real estate and have to deal with that. Whereas I think having stocks and
leveraging money. I'm not leveraging money. What are you talking about?
Well, you wouldn't leverage money. Your idea is to just like buy the house outright in cash.
Sure.
Most people can't do that. Most people would put 20% down or 50% down and then still have a mortgage that's less than whatever the rental rate is, right? That's still leveraging the house. And then that way maybe you could buy multiple houses in a downturn. Maybe that's what some of the wisest people would do. You're much more conservative than that. You would say, I'm only going to buy one house or maybe one property, but I'll buy it all in cash and have no risk, you know. But I just feel like I don't know if that's really what I would want to do either, just because it's so much effort to try to research properties and go visit them and then have a team go in there and try to renovate them and then have renters come in and all. It just seems way more difficult than just investing in good, solid companies that have lost a lot of value but will eventually recover without you having to do anything. You just simply buy their stock and sit on it.
Sure. I would, if I had perfect future vision and I knew I could make the same money in the stock market or in real estate, of course I would choose the stock market.
The only argument for real estate is when you meet people who have really cool properties. They have like vacation homes and ski lodges and they rent them out all the time. But then whenever they want to go skiing or go to the beach or go to the mountains, you have a property that you actually can use yourself. Yeah. That's a lot cooler than owning stock in Amazon or Apple.
Well, of course it is. But, you know, it's also super cool when we go out to California and get to see Pi's studio and office that he has. It's like my dream space. It's so awesome. I would love to have a space like that.
That is the approach of like investing in real estate, like commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I'm not really saying commercial real estate, although I guess that is feasible. Sure. It's just so expensive to buy commercial real estate.
Sure.
it's a whole nother level of capital that you need.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, there's a lot of people going on and on right now. You were one of them this morning. It's like you should borrow as much money as humanly possible and buy as much as you can. And this market's always going to go up, and the real estate market's always going to go up. And I agree. Like in the past, that has been a way to get rich quick, but it's also a way to go bankrupt real quick. And I sleep easy knowing that I have no payments. And so I would like to continue that.
I guess I just feel like we're in a high level of volatility. I don't want to get left behind. I don't want to take this time and not do anything, because you've been waiting for this for 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Imagine if you don't do anything on the way down or the way up, or if you don't make those moves or don't prepare to make those moves and you miss this opportunity, you're going to look back and say like, oh my gosh, I could have done so much if I just would have known what to do. And I think that's everyone's fear. That's the fear of timing the market if you're buying stocks, or not looking at real estate. I don't know that I want to buy real estate in the United States while I'm living in Puerto Rico. And I don't know that I want to buy real estate here in Puerto Rico because I don't know what's going to happen with that either, But I feel like I should have a game plan. And I'm just concerned that just like the people in Congress who sold all the stocks a month before they realized how bad this was going to be, I feel like those insiders and people with lots of money, your Apples, your Amazons, all these people that have just cash reserves, they're going to be the ones that buy up all this stuff for dirt cheap. And they're going to be the ones that benefit. And so kind of in my mind, I keep thinking maybe I should just buy Amazon, stick with them long term, because Amazon and Facebook and these FANG stocks, they're the ones that are just going to do what they always do and just buy up all this cheap stuff. Their business is going to get bigger, more diversified. They're going to have more revenue streams. And I can never beat them, so why not join them? Why not invest in those companies?
I mean, I think that's a smart way to think, that we don't know what the heck's going on. We hardly understand the stock market at all anyway, and we certainly don't understand these companies. So why not put our money in companies that are much smarter than us, that have their hand in economies all over the world, that are, creating new technologies on a daily basis. They definitely know what's going on more than us, and so just put the money in that and let that grow.
Well, that's how I bought my house. So we both bought houses around the same time, 2013. We got incredibly lucky. The market was already near the bottom. Interest rates were near the bottom at that time. And we just found houses that, were in areas that hadn't totally developed yet. Bought our homes. We put down, I think, 20%. I put down most of the money on my house from investments that I made in Apple a couple of years before, So I'd made enough money with my Apple stocks just from shooting weddings. And then that grew at a crazy rate. And then I just pulled all that out of the market and put the down payment on the house. That's been, I don't want to say the only wise decision I've ever made, but that's by far the smartest decision I ever made, was buying that house. And it luckily gentrified, and downtown Charleston became twice the population, and suddenly my house was sitting in an area that everyone wanted to be in. It's doubled in value. So I knock on wood, I'm just really thankful for that one decision. But now that I've seen my portfolio drop all the way, I'm barely in the green. It just feels like everything.
You mean barely in the green from when?
From 2 months ago. 2 months ago I was up 30 or 40%. Now I'm up 10%. So in 5 or 6 years of investing, maybe I'm being silly right now, 5 or 6 years of investing, I've only had 10% gains. But when it was 50%, it felt a lot better,
I see.
So I just look at it now, and I look at what you have in cash, and you did nothing with it. And then I've taken more risk with all these stocks, and I'm up only 10%. I feel like it hasn't helped out all that much. But maybe the idea is if you never get back in and I ride this out, in a year or two, depending on what you do, I'll now be back to where I was before. Because 3 months ago, I was laughing at you. I was like, why have you stayed out of the market?
Yeah.
Look, I've got 30 to 50% gains on many stocks over a couple years, since Trump took office at least. And then you have nothing to show for. In fact, with inflation, maybe you've had a little bit of money removed from there because it has less buying power.
For sure, yeah. But you've been dealing with the same psychological issues that I have. Mm-hmm. You are now changing your tone from, I don't know, a week or two ago. Yeah. You started selling a bunch of Amazon stock thinking it would go down. And now you're like, I need to buy into Amazon stock even though it's gained value.
That's the worst thing you could do. And I did it. I just did the calculation based on Friday. And in 1 week, I've already lost a significant amount of money by just not sticking the course.
Well, of
but
course.
That's because last week was a rebounding week.
Yeah, it's been going up a ton. We were down 30% like a week ago, and now we're probably down like 18% from the high a month or two ago, which is crazy. Like, it almost feels like I've got a little bit of money in the market in a few things, and I just feel like, do I want to pull all of it out right now and just wait another month or two for the real crash to come? Because I think people forget that the stock market went down 60% in 2008, and it feels like this is much worse.
Yeah.
Not because of just the virus, but because people have more debt. The United States has more debt than ever before, and people literally cannot go to work. It is illegal to leave your house and go to work. How in the world can we recover more quickly? But
I'll have to find a clip to put in this video, but it's that same guy with the glasses with the British accent. He was on CNN and he was just acting like we're going to have a huge recovery. Like, this is not like 2008. There's no underlying financial problem. And once everyone goes back to work, many of these jobs are just going to like rehire their employees if they've let them off. And like, we're going to have that V-shaped recovery. But then he talks about how there's going to be tens of thousands of small businesses, especially in the restaurant industry, that are not going to make it. And I'm just thinking like, how can you have it both ways?
Right.
How can you have all of these small businesses go out of business, but yet you just feel like, I mean, people were talking about there was already an employment crisis. Like, we had such low unemployment numbers that it was very hard for businesses to find people to hire. And now that everyone's been fired, it's going to be hard finding people because like you've just fired somebody that you've trained. You know, you're going to want to either hire them back, but if they take a job at Amazon because they just needed something, it's like you're going to have to retrain all your workers. And there's a huge cost to training people.
But I was talking to Katie about this morning, and she kind of feels like, oh, it's just going to, soon we're just going to go back to work and everything's going to be normal. And I'm like, let's say that we somehow get this virus under control in the next few weeks, and Trump says, all right, like, start going back to work, but be safe. Maybe we need to wear gloves. Maybe we need to wear masks and stuff.
No masks, though. The WHO said no masks.
That's true. How do restaurants work? Are you going to eat at a restaurant with gloves and a mask on? Do you put the mask up on your head like a bandana? And
do all
eat,
restaurants lose like 30% of their seating because we now all have to sit 6 feet away from each other?
Exactly. And what percentage of people, even if it was 100% safe, even if we eradicated it, what percentage of people are going to be cautious to go back to restaurants and movie theaters and theme parks and all the stuff that we like wasting money on? How many people are just going to be cautious and go, you know what? Let's just eat at home for another few months.
There's one thing that's come up a few times, though, here in the Q&A window that I think you should address, related to how restaurants are handling rent. And I know this has come up multiple times, you know, over the past 12 days or whenever.
I think the Cheesecake Factory just told us what they're doing, right?
They did. They are not going to pay it. And, you know, there's been a lot of conversation around that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I have a couple thoughts. One, I think you need to have a conversation and ask for relief. You don't need to tell them you're not going to pay. I think that you need to have the conversation, which is my business has been, most of my revenue generating has been shut down due to COVID-19. And because of that, I'm unable to pay my rent. What can you do for me? Or I think I'm going to be unable to pay my rent. This is where the new piece, this new act is so critical for you all, because you can use, once you get your loan money, you can use it to pay for rent and not have to pay it back. So some would argue, and again, this is a legal choice. I want to be really clear. Please don't, not pay until the landlord. Emily said I didn't have to. If you are where you have the next month where you can stay open, knowing that you now can apply the minute this is signed into law, you can apply. I would say you ask your landlord, can I please have 30 days, 45 days without penalty? I want to be here. I want to keep my restaurant. I mean, if you're the landlord, you're kind of crazy not to do something helpful, because who do you think you're going to have moving in there in the next 6 months? I mean, hate to say it. So if that's the case, then you have time for this loan to come into place. Then you have time to pay your rent, and you don't have to pay that money back.
And if these restaurants are already working on such thin margins, don't they have to start laying people off? And then once they start laying people off and they're not making enough profit, we just can't afford to pay rent anymore. We got to close this restaurant down. And it just seem like domino after domino after domino is going to be falling just because people are a little bit cautious. And that's the best case scenario I see.
And you're talking just about being cautious about the health risk.
Yes.
If you are also being cautious economically on your own home budget, you're going to say, you know what, we can continue to eat spaghetti a couple nights a week because we need to save the money. You know, if I can go to the grocery store and spend $100 a week or whatever you spend at the grocery store, or I can go out and have a meal that's going to be $20 or $50 for 2 people, you're going to choose that grocery store for a week, you know? And so I totally agree. And people, I know friends that are buying like all the cruise line stocks and even the airlines. I'm like a little skeptical to jump into those because I'm like, people will get back to flying. But what if we realize, you know what? For the next 6 months, let's just continue to do these online meetings. And I don't have to come all the way across the country to meet with you. And I just don't see these industries rebounding as fast as people are saying. And I also am now hearing, are they calling this Q3 that we just did?
QE3?
Well, quantitative easing. I don't know, but they're just dropping the E.
Okay.
I don't know what Q3 is, but they're now talking about 4 and 5. And I said this a couple days ago. I was like, this will be the last time the market can go up because we've passed the bill. The stimulus bill is done. Unless, of course, they can pass more. And guess what? They're already talking about passing more. Like, they're already looking down the future. Trump just extended, we didn't talk about this yesterday, he just extended the quarantine until the end of April. So long Easter Sundays, like that's gone. You know, that happened really quickly.
Yeah.
Just days after saying he wanted much of the country to open by Easter, President Trump has now extended social distancing guidelines through the end of April.
And I just feel like we're realistically going to be quarantined again in May, you know? And I think this bill, which I did want to go through some of the bill, some of the ideas that you can do to make money and get money to help you through these times. The bill talks about being good for 8 weeks, I believe. So that's only a 2-month period.
Yeah.
So April and May, let's say we get this under control and start going out in June, there's still a very good chance people are not going to have the money for their mortgage, for their rent, for their employees, especially after the 8-week period's been eaten up by, you know, some of these programs.
Well, something that I have been thinking about the last few days, and something that we have talked about for years now, has been the higher education bubble. This idea that the cost of going to school and getting a worthless degree is outrageous.
Yeah.
And because these young children are able to get unlimited loans for these worthless degrees, they just assume that it's normal to go $100,000 or $200,000 in debt and get some degree that, you know, has no value in the marketplace. And then they come out of school and they're like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
There's no jobs.
There's no jobs. I can't pay for this, whatever.
I'm working a job that has nothing to do with my degree.
And we have seen, and like my brother works for a university. He actually just left a few months ago. But this idea that university, at least in America, I'm sure it's like this in other wealthy countries around the world too, it's much more about the experience than it is about the education. People want...
Or at least equal. Do you think it's more?
I certainly think it's more. I certainly think it's more. If you
From the student's perspective or from the educator's perspective?
From the student's perspective.
Okay, students are saying, I need to go to college and have this experience.
Yeah, like I want to go to the college where I love the football team.
Yeah.
I want to go to the college that's got the cool dorms. I want to go to the college that's known for being the party school. I want to go to the college that's got the hottest girls. I want to go to the college that's next to the ski slope or next to the beach or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
All of these things that, you know, when we're 18 years old are important to us.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, you know, your parents are paying for the school or whatever, and you're like, well, if I have to go to a school, I want it to be a school that has all these things that I like doing or whatever. So you're thinking about it in this horrible way. You know, it should be kind of a business decision. I'm going to pay X amount, and I hope I can make X amount more throughout my lifetime or whatever.
Yeah.
But my brother, working for this university, he was just saying that the quality of students is going down, at least in his school. He works for a relatively small school, but he's basically saying, like, the majority of these students shouldn't even be going to university. Like, they are not good students. They do not care about being educated at all. but they're getting these loans, and then they just think they should go to university, and then they're dropping out, or they're failing, or they're getting through, but then they've got this degree that's worthless or whatever.
And a loan, in many cases, is kind of like your parents giving you a wedding budget. If you're given the budget, you're going to use that loan.
Yeah,
if you get $80,000 in a loan, you're going to figure out a way to spend it all.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the foresight to see down the road and be like, I'm going to have to pay this back.
And my brother's even seen, he had friends do this when he was in school, and he's seen his students do it, where there's ways to get these loans to live off of, but you can basically do anything you want with the money. So people are going out and like buying fancy computers and video games and cars and vacations, and you can kind of just live this lifestyle for 4 years because you're getting these loans. Anyway, I think it was Dana White of the UFC the other day. He was in an interview, and he was saying, I don't see why anyone is going to want to go into debt for university anymore when we're learning that you can just sit at home and learn everything that you want off of a laptop.
Yeah.
And I called my brother today, and I was talking to him about it, and he was saying his school had been hesitant to move online because it was bad, it wasn't as good of an education and blah, 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 blah. But now they've been forced to. So everything's online. But the students, and I would assume, this is something I never thought about. He was like, the students are paying this premium for this fancy school. They're paying to stay in these fancy dorms that they are now locked out of.
They have these meal plans.
They're paying for the meal plan that they're not getting the food. They're paying for access to these professors, one-on-one access to these professors that they're not getting. And are they going to get their money back? A lot of their possessions are trapped in these dorms. And he's like, in every other case, if you're staying in an apartment, the apartment owner can't shut down the apartment and say, hey, sorry, like you got to go live with your family right now. At the very least, you'd get your money back. But he's like, all of these universities are able to keep all of the money, lower
all their power bills, and they're running AC in all these buildings, and staff's not there.
Yeah, so he was like, people are not going to put up with this for very long, and soon they're going to start realizing that, man, if I can just take these classes on a computer, what am I paying for? And is it really worth $30,000 a year for me to live this lifestyle in college?
Well, to be fair, to play devil's advocate, my fiance is an educator, and she's currently in grad school online. That was one of the deals, like how I persuaded her to come down here. It's like, work on your master's degree. And she's doing the classes online, and I don't think she likes them. I think she would just say, I prefer being in a classroom.
Sure.
So there is some social element to that. That's not just the party thing.
No,
but at what cost?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, but once again, this is what's so funny to me about people in education. People say that you can't put a price on education. You can't put it's priceless. Having that education and being able to educate yourself and everything. And you go, okay, do you read textbooks on your day off? No. I just like going to class and seeing my friends and working on group projects and interacting with my professor that I'm friendly with. Oh, that's what you like.
Yeah.
You don't actually want to have the personal effort put into learning and teaching yourself.
Yeah.
You like this social gathering.
Yeah.
I do too.
Every time this conversation comes up, I just keep looking at online education and thinking, this is the future. I've been saying for years, why can the government not pay, let's talk billions of dollars now, maybe trillions of dollars since we just passed this budget thing.
Why not?
Why can the U.S. government not spend $1 trillion and hire 300 of the best professors in the country,
in the world,
and come up with an online curriculum, and they teach biology, organic chemistry, mathematics, everything, creative writing, come up with the whole curriculum and put it on YouTube or some platform like that. You're going to put it on your own government platform and come up with a socialized, here I go with the socialized thing, but a socialized education system. And we're going to say this costs every single person who wants it $5,000. For $5,000, you can sit, and maybe we have these test centers, you have to do the material and then go to a test center like you did with the the ACT and the SAT. I had to do it with the DAT. Like, you show up there, you do the bubble test for your test every week. But you could do this program, and for $5,000, you could get like the most basic college degree. And maybe every year or two we'll have to update some stuff, but many things don't change. I mean, organic chemistry is not changing that much. Calculus isn't changing that much. You know, literature, we're reading the same books we've been reading for the last 20 years. And then get away with all of these textbooks that are $300. What a scam that is. And I feel like we could come up with a program where everybody could have the education that they want. And maybe we even give it away for free. If you keep a GPA of like 3.8, you get the $5,000 for free and you get to take this course. But it just feels crazy to say, to get that same sort of degree from a liberal arts school, you got to pay $50,000 to $100,000. It's insane. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And then they're finding out that, guess what? Having that degree isn't enough. You know, I'm applying to dental school, and they're like, you really need to get that master's degree to be competitive now. And I'm like, another 2 or 3 years to get another degree? And if I don't get into dental school, I now have to fall back on a degree that, like, I didn't even really like. I'm just doing it because it's a means to an end.
And then people, like you said, could just sit at home for a small amount of money, or maybe no money. And it would be on you. It'd be personal responsibility. It would take work. You would have to, you know, get up and do it when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But the cream would rise to the top, and I think that's what I always want out of America. I don't want equal outcome. I don't want everybody to make the same amount of money and be the same level of success. I think that's ridiculous. That's not possible. But I want there to be the same level of opportunity, and I don't like the idea that just because you were born into a poor family, you don't have as much opportunity. I still believe, like I said in the last episode, of any country in the world, I still think the United States probably has the most opportunity for poor people. But it would be even better if higher education wasn't a hurdle anymore. And I just think all of this might be showing that
its ugly head with, you know, the situation that we're in.
Exactly. These
and
prices
it's been
are
building
so
up for
inflated.
years, you know?
Yeah.
Building up for years. And I guess I've always thought, like, what is it called? The skip year? Where, like, you graduate high school and then you don't go to college. You get to serve your wild oats or something. You get to go out and, like, live life to the fullest.
Okay.
And realize that it's hard out there.
Yeah.
And have your own bills and, like, deplete all the little savings you might have. Like, I had no savings as a high schooler. I had, like, a day, like, I DJ'd. I had, like, a stereo business where I'd, like, go to parties for teenagers and just play music. So I had, like, a couple $1,000 was all I had. If you were forced to just take a year off and see what the real world was like, I think that would make you appreciate the college experience that much more.
Absolutely.
But instead, what you do is you go into college as a freshman, as an 18 or 19-year-old, and you're just there to, like, you figure out a lot of things too. I think that is a good experience, but I think it's wasted in a lot of ways too.
Well, you know, it's like if you have the money to do it, you know, if you've got the money to go to a fancy school and, you know, have the incredible pools and workout room and gorgeous football field and all that stuff, great. Like, you should be able to spend your money on whatever you want. But the idea that I feel like we have tricked poor people into thinking that if you just take out a loan that you'll be paying off the rest of your life, you can be successful.
Yeah.
But you just need to take out this loan. I just feel like that's horrible.
Another population of people who are going to be getting some temporary reprieve are people paying student loans. So let's take a look at what this relief package does for student loan holders. Who does this affect and what does it mean for you?
In nature, but I do feel like a lot of people are just thinking, like, there's all this free money. And there is some free money out there. But there's also a lot of loans and a lot of things that they're doing to try to get you to be able to, like, withstand these tough times. And maybe that's just what you have to do. It's either take on a loan at, 4%, I think is what a lot of them are now, or your business could potentially fail and your entire capacity of making money is gone, you know?
Part of me wants to say, you know, well, you know, if you have been bad with your money, then your business needs to fail and we need to let somebody else come in who's going to manage it more conservatively and, like, get this back on track. But at the same time, and I think this has been everybody's fear, it's not that simple. If all the businesses begin to fail and everyone stops paying their bills, there will be pandemonium. And how long will it take for us to recover from that?
Yeah.
So we're in the exact same situation we were when we bailed the banks out in 2008. And
but the difference is I think there are some, if legitimate's the right word, there is a large percentage of businesses out there that we all love that just have such small margins that maybe there is no way for a business to have months and months and months of cash reserves for a rainy day like this, you know? Thinking about like hair salons, I mean, how much money are they? They're just making enough to get by, probably. Restaurants, I've heard the restaurant industry is incredibly difficult. You know, there's so many areas of business where like they're just not raking in just hand over fist amounts of cash. But you would say, from your theory, your mindset is like, if you weren't smart enough to be able to weather the storm, maybe your business deserves to fail. But I think that's true in certain classes of businesses, but then it may not be possible for others.
Maybe to stay competitive in some fields, you're right. Maybe the airline industry. You know, I just want to think with the airline industry, why don't you buy the planes outright, and then right now people aren't flying, so you ground the planes. You're not paying people like in a perfect world. You're not paying the pilots, but the pilots have money saved for a rainy day. You're not paying the stewardesses, but they have money saved.
Flight attendants now.
Of course. You're not paying fuel costs. You're not paying all of the, so it's like everything's kind of on hold just for a few months. That's what I want to think.
Yeah.
But I guess the way that a lot of these companies work is like everything is on margin, and nobody owns any of the planes, and everything's on payments. And the second Delta stops making their payments, Boeing can't afford to pay their employees who aren't doing anything right now because they're not building any new planes.
Yeah.
And now Boeing has to lay off everybody. And Boeing's employees were the ones who went to all the restaurants. So now they're not going to the restaurants anymore, and all the restaurants. So, like
it's
I said,
a house of cards,
Yeah, it's so easy for us to sit here and complain and go like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. But I don't know what the correct answer is either.
Yeah. So we're getting close to our 50 minutes, but I did want to go through some of the information that I found today. I've been watching a lot of news, but I have been watching a lot of videos on how to get some of the money that the government is giving out into your pockets. And it kind of started with, somebody was talking about net operating losses, NOLs, and how like the government now has opened up this window to where like if you had a year of losses, you could like go back and use those losses against previous years. And I guess I don't totally understand it, but maybe you had about 2 years that you could do this. And now with this new bill, the CARE Act, it has opened it up to 5 years. I don't think our business has ever had a loss, so I don't know that we could take advantage of this. But I know a lot of photographers that watch your channel might have just started a business, or maybe they're 1 or 2 years into their business. And I know those first few years, you definitely can have a loss. When you're buying gear and you're trying to like get your business started, you might operate at a loss because you're spending all your money on advertising and building up your site. And
if people are doing that, that is exactly what I tell people never to do. Like, do not go into debt to start a photography business.
I don't know that you're into debt,
insane.
though. I'm just saying if you make $50,000 in your photography business the first year, but then you buy $70,000 worth of gear.
Yeah, I would never tell someone to do that. But maybe people who have another job and they have plenty of money.
That's exactly what I did. Is I had one job, and then I worked at Ritz Camera, and I made my $40,000 a year. And then
did you make 40? I don't know that you made 40.
Maybe I made 30. I don't know. I made some tiny amount of money.
Yeah.
And then I also had this photography business that I started, and then maybe I shot 10 weddings that first year, or 8 weddings that year at $1,000 each or $2,000 each, and so I made 20 grand there. And then I wound up spending more than that amount to buy the assets that I needed. I needed 2 cameras, 2 lenses, 2 speed lights. Like I needed all this stuff that added up more. So anyway, I had a loss. And so if you're in that situation, you can take advantage of some of these things. But I just wanted to go over this one video. It's an hour long, but it's with an accountant named Emily Knight out of Texas.
There's parts of this, the money that you will get in a loan, right, up to 10 million or 2.5 times your payroll. You can use a portion of it for those pieces and not have to repay.
The free $10,000 is for people who even have private contractors. So if you are a photographer and you pay someone to edit your photos, or you pay an assistant or whatever, if they're not on your payroll but you pay them hourly or whatever, then that would be, is that a 1099?
Yep.
That would be $10.99, and so you could potentially get up to $10,000 as long as you spend the money within how much? 2 months, something like that?
I think you have to spend it within 8 weeks, but it can be on any of these things. It can be on your labor, your 1099, your W-2s. It could be on your rent, your mortgage interest, or utilities. A lot of people, they designate one part of their house. You have to be very, very specific about this, but you might have 10% of your house as your home office,
right?
And then 10% of your energy bill can be that office, and you could spend it on that.
I saw this funny post, I think on Wall Street Bets today, and it was like, great news, everybody. Now that we've learned that we can just give people as much money as they want and need, think about how much better the world is going to be. Everyone should be able to own multiple houses and have multiple cars, and no one has to work anymore. It's going to be great. Don't worry if you're losing money in the stock market right now. We're all going to be rich because the government's just giving us free money. And I feel like a lot of people still think that way. Like, oh, it's just free money. Like, it's no problem.
Well, and there's also a lot of evidence coming out that the world is becoming less polluted because nobody's working.
Yeah.
So if we just keep everyone at home, give them all the free money, like, this is the ultimate plan. Like, how did we not think of this before?
Why didn't anyone think of this?
But looking long term, I don't see how this is going to be a solution. I feel like this is going to add to the problem.
It seems like it would, and if it doesn't, then I am the biggest socialist in the world. I believe we should be printing more money. If we can just give people money and everything gets better, then we should have done that in 2008. We could have done that during World War II. We could have just people didn't need to work. We could have just printed money and then the airplanes and tanks would have appeared.
Yeah.
It would have been better.
I saw on Twitter today that Russia might not be letting Khabib leave the country.
Oh, I did want to talk about that.
Is the fight still on, or is they going to be able to smuggle him out of the country? Is this his way of I can't imagine Khabib is scared of this fight. He seems like the most confident fighter, one of the most brutal fighters in history. But is there a chance that he doesn't actually want to fight Ferguson?
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, this fight is one of the largest mixed martial arts fights ever. People have been talking about this fight for years. It's been canceled 4 times for other reasons. Dana White has been saying he's going to make this happen on April 18th, no matter what. And he's finding other countries to do it in because it's going to be illegal in the States. Well, today, Khabib came out with a tweet or something and said that he is now trapped in Russia, where he's from, I guess. And so there's all this speculation now of they're trying to save the event, but Tony might be fighting someone else, and people are pissed off about this because nobody wants to see Tony fight anybody else. They want Tony versus Khabib. So I don't know what to think. I just wonder
if it was any other country, maybe China, but China and Russia, it's going to be pretty hard to get them out.
But I would think that Khabib probably has a decent relationship with Putin.
Yeah.
And Dana probably has some sort of relationship with Putin. I mean,
and is he actually in Russia, or is he in one of the other countries it's broken off of?
I think he's in one of the side countries.
It just feels like you could get smuggled out and sneak out, but then maybe there's a fear of fine.
You don't want to be sneaking out of Russia and then coming back in, but I don't know. So we're all waiting now to see what happens.
Well, and another thing with these MMA fights is, usually they end okay, but in many cases people get knocked out, they get injured. We've seen many brutal fights where people go straight to the hospital afterwards.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you can't go to the hospital because it's full of,
That's a very good
coronavirus
point.
people.
But if you could fly everyone involved in the fight on a private jet to some country where it's not a big deal, then maybe it could be really safe.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
You think there's some countries out there where it's not a big deal?
There are certainly some countries.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope to watch that fight, but it would be so much better in a bar with the crowd on the television and everybody congregating. I can't imagine just watching it on the iPad and it's silent.
In silence almost. Yeah, it was really, really weird watching the jiu-jitsu fight yesterday. It was depressing. And it made me think, I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud, but it made me think, is this how I want to see Khabib and Tony fight under these guidelines? Or do I want to just wait a few months and let's see them really do it the way that it should be?
It's a hard one. I think I would rather wait. I don't want to see the fight fall through, though. And I feel like the
That's
second
what I'm afraid.
you change the date, it opens up that possibility pretty well.
Absolutely. All right, we've been rolling for a while here. Let's end
Does that
today.
say it's okay? An hour, 5 minutes or so.
I'm gonna cut this one down a lot. I think we jibber jabbered a little too long.
I came into this saying like I don't really have much to talk about.
I
And
know.
then we talk about like online education.
I know. I think we talked about a lot for too long.
But they might like that. People like when we go off script, and maybe they want to hear stuff other than coronavirus.
That's true, but we're still talking about a lot of negative stuff. If we were like, Tony and Khabib's happening tomorrow night, it's going to be awesome.
Well, maybe we'll
everything's
be
getting canceled.
There. The positive news is I feel like on this particular day, I feel like coronavirus is starting to flatten out, and maybe it's not going to be as bad in the world. Numbers seem to be going down. I mean, we're supposed to be doubling every like 2 or 3 days, and I feel like we should have been at 1 million by today or tomorrow, and I feel like we're still in the 700s. So maybe things are slowing down. Maybe just the reporting is slowing down.
Yeah, it's weird to think that the reporting would be slowing down. But anyway, let's end this. Guys, if you'd like to be one of our patrons, head over to our Patreon link in the description below. 100% of the money that we make will be donated to the people of Puerto Rico during this time. And we're still running that crazy sale at fstoppers.com/store. Head over there and you can figure that sale out. And one of our tutorials is 100% free, no strings attached. So,
and if you want me to read some more comments tomorrow, leave us some good comments. Leave us some good comments that make us laugh, and then maybe tomorrow we'll have a chuckle at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, I want to hear how insane Patrick is, because everybody's like these white knights on YouTube right now, and they're like, Patrick's the conservative one, he's being safe, he cares about his family, and Lee's trying to murder Patrick and doesn't care about his livelihood at all. Lee only thinks about himself and wrestling and making out with other guys and stuff. It's like, come on.
Touching people's sweaty coronas.
Yeah, it's all right. Let's be done.
Let's get out of here.
An influencer who went around licking toilets as part of the viral coronavirus challenge TikTok challenge has tested positive for COVID-19 in a shocking turn of events that nobody saw coming.